Tonight on CTV News, we have a short interview with the U.S. Senate candidate, plus a look at a 9/11 memorial service that took place over the weekend.
All this and more coming up on CTV News starting now.
All right, well, we're live. We're starting. I'm Willis Scott.
And I'm Emily Biffinger, and here's what's going on in the world. Out of the 1.8 million tons of rubble that was left at Ground Zero on September 11th, a piece made its way back to Fort Collins. Poudre Valley Fire Rescue was granted a steel beam from the skeleton of the World Trade Center, and the beam made an 1,800-mile journey from New York to Fort Collins in only 4 days. Along the way were police escorts and 8 men, known as the Guardian of the Steel, who swore to protect the beam. Captain Doug Lee, one of the Guardians, spoke to us about the journey.
I don't think it was one particular moment. It was constant for 4 days, and that was the way the community came out across the country as we traveled. We were never without an escort, either Patriot Guard or law enforcement. The people, general public, coming out, running across fields to wave at us as we drove across the country. It truly was like we were in a presidential motorcade and we were carrying a piece of precious cargo. Hardly ever an overpass that didn't have somebody on it, fire equipment or law enforcement, huge ceremonial flags. Like I said, 4 in the morning all the way up till 7, 8 o'clock at night when we stopped driving it. It never ended. It never ended until we pulled into Fort Collins. Pretty crazy and incredible.
A memorial will be installed to display the steel beam permanently at Poudre Fire Rescue Station 3 later this year.
The city of Fort Collins and top police officials face a discrimination lawsuit. The suit claims that the police department has condoned a culture of discrimination against Latino and Hispanic officers. It was filed last Wednesday. Another lawsuit accusing the department of racial discrimination was filed at the end of April. The complaint says that despite several incidents of active discrimination against Latino and Hispanic officers, the city did nothing to reprimand officers in command or offer relief to those affected. The department's internal investigations reported no wrongdoing on the part of the defendants. A trial date hasn't been set yet.
Turns out both NASA and the United States Army have a lot to learn from one Colorado State University professor. Associate Professor Travis Maynard of CSU's College of Business is currently involved in a project with NASA regarding the adaptation of teams. Maynard and his colleagues created a literature review for NASA that aimed to understand what it is about teams in general that enables some to adapt and some to struggle when faced with obstacles. Maynard is also involved with the U.S. Army to create a diagnostic tool that the leaders of the Army units can quickly assess the levels of resilience and their teams. Maynard expressed his excitement about his ability to make a difference through conducting team-related research and teaching a class to some of the next-generation teams and leaders.
We're continuing our political coverage here at CTV. U.S. Senate candidate Darrell Glenn participated in the first Colorado Senate debate last Saturday. Glenn did very well in the Republican primary against 4 other candidates. He won the GOP nomination with 37% of the vote. He prides himself on being a Christian constitutional conservative. I sat down with Glenn and asked him about his conservative policies and views.
In regards to the Black Lives Matter movement, you said all lives matter. Would you mind just expanding on that?
Well, I think it's important that we bring all people together to talk about this because I think we should use that as an opportunity to get together. When it becomes that all lives matter is somehow offensive to one group or another, that just shows you that we really need to spend more time talking to each other.
Now, you're unapologetically Christian. Would you mind just telling me how that plays into your politics?
Well, I tell people I want them to understand my statement of faith. If I using that to recruit anybody, but I show them that you have first to make a point, be brave and brave about who and what you are. And I've seen this administration feel like they've suppressed that right. People feel like they have to hold back in stating what they believe in. And I'm trying to remind people that it's okay to say, to be proud of who and what you are.
Glenn also talked about getting rid of the Department of Education and shared his views on abortion. You can read a full copy of the interview in tomorrow's print edition of The Collegian and on collegian.com.
85,000 refugees are expected to come into America this year alone. 10,000 will be making their home here in Colorado. Dr. Jay Marlowe, a professor in New Zealand at the University of Auckland, came to CSU to discuss what this means moving forward. Dr. Marlowe not only went over the facts and figures of refugee immigration, he explained how natural disasters interfere with refugee relief. Natural disaster warnings and precautions are in English, and if a refugee only speaks their native language, then their safety is hindered. Dr. Marlowe went in detail about how, as a society, we need to reach out to the refugee communities in Colorado and help alleviate the language barriers. To learn more about getting involved, please visit grccolorado.org.
CSU is making efforts to close the gender gap in the engineering department. As of spring 2016, almost 25% of full-time engineering students at CSU are female, compared to 20% 5 years ago. This fall semester, 45% of the students enrolled in the biomedical engineering program are women. David McLean, Dean of the College of Engineering, said the increase in female students can be attributed to focused recruitment efforts made by the university. Well, that's all for news. Coming up, Elizabeth Prossi tells us if this gloomy weather is here to stay.
Then later on, we have sports and entertainment.